Hello, we're here to consider the staffing implications of COVID-19 on the biotech and innovative pharma space, in particular with VCPE funded or startup organizations. So, Charles, could you maybe tell us a bit about the pre-COVID context and the backdrop for this conversation?
Yeah, sure. So there's been heavy investment activity in Europe totaling over $62 billion in 2019, which is a key driver to the VC-funded biotech sector. The last 5 years or so in particular, they've seen an explosion in new spin-out companies from universities, and the funding has been ever more accessible for the right people with the right idea. So a key driver to that is the innovative technologies, and through this there's been some considerable hiring and organizational builds through Series A funded firms. So as they move closer to dosing patients for the first time, that makes its regulatory confidence. For example, there was a record number of approvals in 2016 for biologics, and having that confidence, they've been through the process once before. The check boxes are there, and it sort of mitigates the risk to a higher level. So that's the backdrop to start with.
So right now, halfway through 2020, we're seeing across Europe, different COVID restrictions are being relaxed. What's the environment in the here and now today?
Yeah, it's been an interesting start to the year for the last 6 months, to say the least, but there's still investor confidence shining through this time, actually. There's IPOs going ahead and Series A to C investment rounds still coming from the private funding sector. So, albeit obviously there is some short-term volatility, there's postponed tranches of funding, cost management, and actual challenges to run the clinical trials themselves. But the continued drive for new investment has come through the obvious demand for healthcare, but also the diminished confidence in other sectors, so like the automotive sector, for example. So all in all, the demand for healthcare and unmet clinical needs was prevalent long before COVID, but I think this has shone a spotlight on the life science sector, in particular the VC funded firms, which they really are innovate or die. Sometimes it's at the core of their whole organizational structure. So I'd say this arguably makes the biotech sector even more attractive to new investment opportunities now, and really helps to build and establish these companies and bring those investments to life.
Right. So, I mean, what I'm hearing is where an investment or a development has been committed to before COVID, then really the trend is that these investments are continuing to move forwards despite the difficulties organizations might be facing in the short term. There's a lot going on. You've mentioned a lot of different trends, but what is it that you're seeing specifically in the space, and how does this translate to staffing opportunities?
Yeah, so some key examples to name a few recently. SV Health investors have been fairly active in the space. So one of their portfolio companies, Alchemab Therapeutics, they've managed to hire their full senior leadership team throughout this period with experts in the field. So they're a very exciting AI discovery company to be watching. There's also been Series C funding for Freeline Therapeutics of $120 million. So that's to bring their first-in-class gene therapy molecule to haemophilia patients. And then there's also been an example with BitBio. So they secured their Series A funding a little bit closer to the mark than the clinical trials, but they're hoping to use that $40 million of funding to bring closer to first-in-class trials there. So, as well, I also forgot to mention there to round off ADC Therapeutics. They have had a very strong IPO throughout this time, and they're very close to their BLA submission for their first-in-class therapy in cancer treatment. So yeah, it's been strong.
Wow, that's an enormous impact on the market, and it is indeed for for patients in the future that should be benefiting from products these organizations are creating. I mean, finally, what should any job seekers, executives, or organizations who are considering identifying talent or considering a change of role, what should they do at the moment?
Yeah, get in touch. COVID's been a core time for the life science teams at NES, and we've been able to network and connect with a lot of key figures in the industry, both from a company and a candidate perspective. So we're perfectly placed to be making those inroads for you to your dream company or your dream role, and also on the flip side from a company perspective, to be finding you that needle in the haystack, or in the biotech industry, it's often referred to as a golden unicorn. So yeah, please get in touch.
Thanks very much for joining me today, Charles.
Yeah, pleasure to speak, Gareth.